Let's cross and then we'll begin. Oh, yay. Ah! Jason Bourne. Okay. So, I've calmed down a little bit, guys. Whoever's listening, I've been under a lot of stress recently, and I woke up from a nap earlier. I was able to fall asleep, and I had like 5 people trying to get at me at once. You know, it was the B&B lady she was yelling for me, my mom calling me, a subletter calling me, a couple other people. But yeah, so please excuse my neuroticism. I've been definitely a lot more neurotic than usual recently, so do forgive me for that. But I want to talk today about tobacco addiction, dealing with tobacco addiction. And I quit tobacco this year. I quit smoking cigarettes, and I was vaping for a bit too. Vaping, vaping the nicotine, which, if you would like to know, is not as bad as cigarettes. And I know there's a debate about that, but I can tell you from my own experience that smoking cigarettes is definitely worse than vaping nicotine. Now, that is not to say that vaping nicotine is good for you, because it definitely... Fucking A, I thought I was getting run up on. It definitely... it affects your VO2 max, for sure. It affects your lung capacity. Vaping does. But just not as bad as tobacco does. So, if anybody had any maybe misgivings or misunderstandings about that, I hope that clears it up. And vaping can actually be used to kind of transition if you are trying to quit smoking, and you know, because you can buy the e-liquid at different strengths of nicotine. So if anybody out there is listening, either now live or in the future, and they want to quit or they're trying to quit, I would, or that's one tool you can use to kind of wean yourself off of the nicotine addiction, because it is one of the most powerful addictions. It's really, really powerful, tobacco addiction is. And it's quite insidious. And what I mean by that is it almost goes unnoticed. Certainly for me it did. I didn't notice that I was, I thought I could stop anytime. And when I tried to, I couldn't. And you don't realize this until you actually put in a full effort in trying to stop quitting. How did I quit is the best question to ask. And as I said before, I'm on an antidepressant. Well, 2 of them actually, to be completely honest with you guys. Lexapro, and then this other one, which I started taking this year, called Wellbutrin. And Wellbutrin is actually a smoking cessation aid, and that is what helped me to quit. I haven't smoked since, shoot, I think I've had one cigarette since January. And I mean, I can just feel my lung capacity coming back. I feel a lot more clear-headed. And the withdrawals for tobacco are they're not fun. Now, they're not as bad as alcohol by any means. You're not gonna die, but you may feel like it. I remember when I went to Central Asia last year, just as a function of kind of traveling with my family and by myself, I didn't buy any cigarettes. And I remember this one day when I was there, oh my goodness. It's called the smoker's flu. It feels like you have, you know, kind of a mild flu. And you just got a headache, and you know, it just feels like a flu, and the only thing you want to do is eat and sleep to get rid of those symptoms, right? Those withdrawal symptoms. And it's kind of interesting. Hitler used to smoke when he was younger, and then he stopped. He called it a waste of money, and he paranoid as ever. He thought that tobacco was a plan by Native Americans to kill the white man. You know, Hitler being paranoid as always. But if Hitler can do it, you can do it. If Hitler can stop smoking cigarettes, I think you can. And I don't judge other people, you know. As one Englishman once said to me, I don't judge other people. You know, if you smoke or drink, whatever, even crackheads, you know, whatever, man, do your thing, but just know that it's your decision. And you have to take responsibility for that decision. So, if people out there are listening and they're trying to stop, again, I've listed, you can try vaping and just weaning down on the e-liquid nicotine amount, which is actually what I did as well. And then I started taking Wellbutrin, and yeah, it worked just fine. And as far as I understand, the Wellbutrin, it kind of as far as I understand, it prevents the reuptake of the nicotinic receptors in the brain, along with maximizing the reuptake for I think it's the dopogenic ones. Dopogenic, that's the word. To help with ADHD as well, actually, and I think a bit of serotonin too, with as far as antidepressants, the antidepressant effect of that particular drug goes. I'm starting to wake up now, and it's a worldwide problem. It's probably the worst addiction worldwide, I think. It's probably tobacco usage. And will I ever not? Paranoia is stronger than addiction. Will I ever, you know, smoke a cigar in my life? Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna smoke a cigar at some point. Actually, I smoked my first cigar this year, actually. Believe it or not. I was with meine Vater. And we had a cigar. Am I ever gonna smoke a cigarette again? Probably at some point, you know. But am I gonna make it a habit again? No, I definitely not. And the reason I started actually is because when I was in Europe, I started smoking Lucky Strike Reds. Woo! I loved them things, man. Lucky Strike Reds are my stuff, and they're so strong. I mean, I remember my brother, he quit too. My younger brother, actually my older brother quit too. We all quit, which is good. And he had never tried a Lucky Strike Red before, and when he visited us in Japan, you know, we smoked some Lucky Strike Reds. And I remember when we flew back to the States, it was just me and him. And I was can't remember if he drank or not. No, he didn't drink, but I drank, and so I was hungover, and the next morning we smoked a Lucky Strike Red. We each smoked a Lucky Strike Red. Oh my goodness, that shit knocks your teeth back, man. Those Lucky Strikes are strong, and because they're strong, they're a lot more addictive, right? More nicotine, and I think that's why it was harder, in a sense, for me to stop. But if you do smoke, I'd recommend smoking American Spirits. You know, it's just water, tobacco. That's it, as far as I know. You know, whereas all these other additives, they're really bad for you, you know. And that's not to say American Spirits are good for you by any means, but I know that's what my my family did as well. They only smoke American Spirits. So, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Do you smoke?
What, weed?
Sure, anything.
That's the only thing I smoke.
Weed?
I don't really go on cigarettes, so I just smoke weed though.
Okay, cool.
That's all I do.
I gotta go, sir. Cheers. Alright. So, yeah, and that's another thing too, is smoking marijuana in a legal state is a lot different than smoking tobacco, you know. It's, you know, obviously inhaling hot smoke is not good for your lungs. You're gonna, especially the back of your throat, you know, if you're doing it a lot or you're not inhaling cooler smoke, it's not good. But smoking weed is not, you know, it's nothing compared to smoking cigarettes, right? Like all that propaganda. I was watching this Eddie Bravo interview where he was talking about the absolute brainwashing of the world, really, as far as marijuana being a bad drug and all this, and one joint is as bad as a pack of cigarettes. It's just a load of hogwash, probably because of the CIA, because I mean they traffic all that, right? But that's besides the point somewhat. I mean, it's tangentially related, of course, but why is tobacco legal, but marijuana isn't? You know, it's because it's addictive, and the people who invest in tobacco and the big tobacco companies, like one of my favorite shows is Mad Men, and that's one of the main lines, kind of side plots of the show, main themes is Don Draper is, like Pete Campbell says, you know, he's talking to Lane Price, he's like, just relax. You got Don Draper with a cigarette company, move from there. You know, and so that's like his thing, that's what he's good at, is selling cigarettes. Don Draper, and almost all men in the 50s smoked, and a lot of women smoked too. Yeah, I know what you mean, man. I like smoking too. I love smoking Lucky Strikes, but I just got to the point where actually I wrestled my cousin last year, and I'm older than him by about 2 years, and I've always been, and I love him, dude. He's the best. I always have a great time with him. Me and him are so different personality wise. He always like kind of lifts me up in a way, and I think I ground him a little bit. But we wrestled, and I barely beat him, and I was gassed, and I vomited afterwards, and I was like, dude, never has he gotten close to, you know, beating me in a physical contest before. Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. Japan has way better cigarettes than the USA, and I know I'm talking about quitting right now, but back to my cousin. We were wrestling, and I just gassed, man, because I couldn't get enough oxygen to my brain. Even though I was inhaling, it decreases the oxygen saturation in your blood. And on one of my first videos, actually, I posted back when the pandemic started, I talked about an incident last year that I almost died. I was using a power washer and I almost passed out in the basement and died of carbon monoxide poisoning. And certainly a factor in that was my smoking and my decreased oxygen saturation in my blood, right? That being said, I wasn't thinking. You know, I was using a power washer indoors with no window. So I still would have had you know, a chance of passing out, but I just would have lasted maybe a couple minutes longer. But it made me think, because one of the scariest things in the world is not being able to breathe. It's just terrifying. And I don't know if
350, yeah.
some young lads, I don't know if anybody's ever had that experience or if anybody's been scuba diving, but not being able to breathe underwater is sheer terror, let me tell you. if your regulator's not working, or if your oxygen tank isn't working, it's really scary, let me tell you. So don't go scuba diving unless you're certified, people. And it just made me think of my instructor. It's the first day of diving and he slips on a rock, like getting into the ocean, and nobody says anything. We're all like, oh shit, is this guy an actual dive master? I think we're all thinking the same thing. He was a dive master though, he's a great guy. And he was okay, he didn't get hurt or anything. But it's scary, man, when you can't breathe. Lush. And cigarette or tobacco, nicotine, you know, it doesn't help with that at all. And I also had someone in my family, I'm not gonna say who got cancer diagnosis. Shoot, man, I think it was almost 2 years ago now. About 1.5 years ago. And that's what it took for her to quit smoking, was cancer, staring death in the face. Now, fortunately, she's okay. The cancer has, it was stage 0, so it was pre-cancerous, but it was still, you know, a malignant cell that they found, or cells. And so she's good, which is good. But I mean, that's what it takes for some people, is staring death in the face. And you know, these cigarette companies, and they don't care about humanity or lives. All they care about is making money. Tangentially related, Warren Buffett. All right, big guy, we see ya. Yeah, some people, they kind of go out, you know, they go out with their boots on, their tobacco boots on, so to speak. And actually, my grandpa smoked 2 packs a day for 17 years. He's still around, but if he kept smoking, he would not be around. And he has a really weak heart because of that, because he smoked so much. 2 packs a day for 17 years. I couldn't do that if I tried. You know, for me it was like 4 or 5 a day at most. And you know, that's how it was, just chain smoking. And you know, my mom would remember, I came home one day and I smelled like Marlboro Red. And she's like, oh, you reminded me of Grandpa. He used to always smell like Marlboro Red. And dirt. And she associated that with her father and kind of being manly in a way. But you don't have to smoke to be manly, you know. So yeah, some people, if you want to go out with your tobacco boots on, I mean, you can do that, but don't you want to live longer? Be around with your family a little longer? Not to mention going out with lung cancer. Yeah, you guys like my pink shirt? I'm trying to wear lighter colors so I don't intimidate people. Because I think when I wear black, I intimidate people sometimes. And, you know, going out and dying with lung cancer is not fun. You're basically slowly getting suffocated to death. Similar to COVID in a way, but just on a longer period, right? You know, hacking up blood and phlegm and black stuff. And that's what happened too, is when I stopped smoking for a week, I had that smoker's flu. You won't get run over wearing that. No, man, they probably all think I'm a little flamboyant, if you know what I mean, which is a good thing. When you're in commie country, like I am, the PNW, 2 children, I do think I am knocking off time at the end of the... Yeah, man, and sometimes you gotta talk to people, talk to your family. And, you know, just sit them down and have an intervention. Like, I'm bringing up Mad Men again. Freddy has an intervention with Don, because Don is drinking himself to death. You know, it's not tobacco, but it's related. You know, stepping in if you got a friend you love or a family member you love, and they're killing themselves. You have to step in at some point. Man, what are you doing? You gotta stop. Freddy says, are you just gonna kill yourself? Give them what they want? I went in the store and I could smell fruit. Yeah, that's another thing too, is when you're smoking tobacco a lot, you can't smell and taste things very much. And that's the thing I noticed too, is after that break I had, after that smoker's flu, I started smoking again because I'm a dipshit. And I could taste the tobacco, and I like to taste the tobacco, but you know, I only could taste it for like the first 2 or 3 cigarettes. And then after that, it was, you know, you start losing your taste buds again, your sense of smell. And yeah, so Freddy sits down with Don in this scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in the show. And you know, Don's just a total alpha male and really unethical in certain ways, but completely ethical in other ways. You know, he's got a great business work ethic, but as far as it goes with other men's wives, it's a different story. And so he makes a lot of enemies. Yeah, and that's the thing too. Before I go to that Don thing again, is when I went to Europe, I was mind blown. I remember the first time I was in London, October 1st of 2015. And you would just see the prettiest girls, just the hottest girls smoking cigarettes. And for those UK folk who have never been to the US, or you know, any Europeans who may be listening, girls in the US do not smoke. Very, very rarely do you see a female smoking. If you do, it's like, you know, it's kind of a one-off or two-off at parties. They'll have a cigarette or two. But as far as a regular smoker, it's very taboo for women to smoke in the US, and for anyone to smoke in the US. It's a lot more socially accepted in Europe and especially Asia. And what's funny about that is it's kind of backwards. In Europe, you have these pictures of just disgusting lungs and mouths and cancer and people dying. And I'm not saying that's bad, but despite that, almost everybody smokes. And not everybody, but you have a lot more people that smoke. And in the US, you know, it's just the labels. There's no pictures of people dying, but it's a lot more socially taboo here. So I think the pictures came after. The pictures were like, what, 3 or 4 years ago that they started doing that. So probably trying to get people to maybe follow the US a bit in the sense of making it taboo to smoke socially. I don't think it's working though. But yeah, so Don, Freddy sits down with Don, and you know, Don makes, you know, he has a lot of enemies, but he's got some friends that are loyal to him too, like Freddy. And he says, are you just gonna kill yourself, man? Give them what they want? Or are you gonna go in your bedroom, fix your bayonet, and hit the parade? Do the work, Don.